Hello, everybody. Sorry for being a little late. Just had some news of a friend of mine that was at the hospital. So, okay. Here we go. And hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. Everything seems alright. Everything seems alright. Yep, pretty good. Okay. Hey, everybody. Welcome to this live show. This is the Wednesday edition of the Shortwave radio show. And, of course, we are here to entertain and talk about what's happening with the world of radio. Shortwave radio mostly, but we go into all sorts of radio talk. It's nice to have everybody on board. My name is Gilles. I'm located in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. And we are here to entertain and have fun talking about what I think is, for most of us, a big chunk of our life, passion. I'm just going to do something here. There you go. Do a little something like that. And, shortwave radio and radio in general for a lot of us is really something that is important in our lives. And it's something that's cool that, for a lot of us, we grew up with this. And for some of us, we discovered it later. I was 13 years old when I discovered shortwave radio, but I was, somewhere around 11 or 12 when I discovered, 8 or 9 with that Ernie in the Bathtub radio, but the first multi-band receiver was I was maybe 11 or 12. I'd say around 12. And I used that radio so much. I remember going around to my friend's house and bringing that multi-band radio with me. I must have looked like a very strange kid, I gotta say, bringing a multi-band. You don't see too many 12-year-olds bringing a multi-band radio to her friend's house. Even less today, But, that was fun, and we were just having a great time, and we are here to talk about that. So this is a live show, of course, where we talk about radio. No specific amount of time. This show does not have a time limit. That means it could last an hour, and it's over. It rarely does last less than 2 to 3 hours. The average that I do is really 3 hours in general, depending on the feedback. And, we do have record shows, so our record right now stands at 5 hours and 30 minutes. I don't think we're going to do that tonight, but, it's possible that it's longer than usual. And it's fun to have everybody here. There's a beautiful chat room. We have a great Facebook group, and that group is really amazing. It has the same name as the channel here, Official SWL Channel. It's a group where the fun continues. When it's over here, it continues on the Facebook group. We're at 400, I believe it was 442 members when I checked earlier today. We lost one. We were at 443 yesterday. I guess somebody thought, nah, this is not for me. You got to be a fan of radio. And honestly, that group is a place where we share a lot of radio pictures, videos, what we're listening to. People ask questions. People show some of the stuff they want to buy and ask for, is this good? Is this any good? Should I buy this or not? Lots of very, very nice stuff happening there. Great people helping out, answering others' questions. We often talk about how this group here is a lot of fun. It's a wonderful group where we help each other, and it's based on just caring about the fact that everybody here is not at the same level. Some people are beginners, some people are at experts, and there's all in between. And even if you're an expert in something on the radio, you know what? We rarely actually know everything. We are good at certain areas of the hobby, but we often have that area of the hobby that we don't touch on much, we don't talk a lot about, and we have maybe less knowledge, And, well, here, all of us together, we complete that. We actually have that knowledge base. And when I goof up and I say something that's wrong, well, you guys are there to actually correct me, and the other way around. And it's really a lot of fun to be here. And the Facebook group, well, it kind of continues that. It's an extension of having that fun. I took the occasion today to go out on the balcony and check out on the ML830 and W6LVP loops because we're waiting for a really big snowstorm here in the next 2 days. It's supposed to start tomorrow morning, and we are to have, from the latest count, is at plus more than 30 centimeters of snow. That's more than 1 foot of snow. And we should have that in the next 2 days. Well, here it's something that's actually kind of normal. We have this every year, and it's actually not normal not to have one of those. So we had a few storms this year, but we didn't have a real big one. So this is a big one. And actually in the past week, even today, in the past week, we had temperatures that were just barely above 0 Celsius, just above 32 Fahrenheit, and sunny. And it felt like March, late March, when we start having those temperatures that feel like spring is coming. It felt like spring, and it actually felt like spring for the past week, which was kind of nice, though, because it gives us a break. We had a little bit of cold temperatures, but it gives us a kind of a break. But now we're back into winter starting tomorrow. So more than 30 centimeters is pretty much what they expect, and that's more than 1 foot of snow. But here, life continues as usual. I remember one guy saying, wow, the city must stop. No, here, a foot of snow, everybody goes to work, and there's people take their cars for work. And it's like it's life as usual. We are actually, we have an army of trucks, and we just cope with it. And, it's another day in life, and that's all. So welcome aboard, everybody. Hope you have fun. Beautiful chat room as usual here. So hope that everybody is going to have fun. We have questions today. So we have Brandon in the UK that sent some questions about propagation, and nice questions, actually interesting questions that he wants me to answer tonight. And we're going to answer them. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 9 questions on my sheet of paper here. So 9 questions total. And we're going to go through all 9 of them tonight. So hope that maybe, I like this because also people will learn at the same time about, propagation and so on. I have this Wednesday my vodka, actually it's vodka, ginger ale, and cranberry juice. So cheers, everybody. So anyways, that is really fun to be here. As usual, we are twice a week. We are here on Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, 0 UTC. On Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. That's 20 hours Universal Time. So, in the chat room, Matambali, nice to have you here from Colorado. Bobby Burgess, WA5107SWL, checking in from Morgan City, Louisiana. If you're wondering where that comes from, I can give you a little hint. I got mine this week, and I printed it on, actually, a glossy photo paper. So, here it is. I printed my little certificate. So this is my call that I got this week, VE2029SWL. So, and it's actually very beautiful. and it's even more beautiful on printed on photo paper. It's actually very, very nice. So I'm going to put this in a frame on the wall. And, I always used my my Radio Budapest call sign over time. But you know what? I thought, why not get one? Everybody's getting one. I'm going to get mine. So here we go. This is really, really nice. Anyways, nobody can see it here. Let's just put it like this. So that's where is number comes from. MT Silver Star, nice to have you here. I haven't checked. By the way, you're just making me realize if yes, Elizabeth saying hi from Regina, Saskatchewan. And so this is nice to have everybody on board, of course. And apparently I'm live, according to YouTube. So, okay. We have MT Silver Star. Nice to have you here, my friend. Case F7BQ. Terry in Western Montana. And my day is going, today, my day is going very well. Yesterday was a little weird. And I got a couple of people that was a little disappointed in, but, it's life. And, when they say that we should all do, we should actually all kind of, do stuff ourselves sometimes instead of waiting for others. Yesterday was that. So I took care of it myself. Cyberflyer 1, nice to have you here, my friend. We have Gustavo Pinto, nice to have you on board from Brazil, my friend. Shelly, nice to have you from Pennsylvania. What else do we have? Mark Stevens, nice to have you here from North Carolina Mountains, 45 unit. Nice to have you on board. And we'll get a foot of snow here. 74 degrees in Florida. Joe Brown, nice to have you here from Southeast Michigan. Jerry DX, nice to have you on board, my friend. Pretty cool to have everybody here, as usual, of course. We have Rufus Newt, nice to have you on board. Cyberflyer 1 is from Worcestershire, England. And what else do we have? Yes, I'm still alive. Kevin Wood, nice to have you here, my friend. James Powers from Derry, New Hampshire. Matt, MDK2, nice to have you here from Colorado. Mark Stevens, good health to everyone out there. Shane Green, nice to have you here from Utah. Marvin Motz, nice to have you on board from Japan Islands. Cool. Of the Dawn, nice to have you here. Kamexi 1976. Nice to have you on board. Yeah, well, I actually, and I was about to meet a friend on Monday. And that guy is always, on time. He's always, if something happens, he's always calls. So Monday, we were supposed to meet up for a dinner. And so, I get to the restaurant. No calls. Not there. I end up eating my meal alone. And the only thing I could think in my head is, wow, something happened. It's the kind of guy that if he's not there and he doesn't call, something bad is happening. So of course I called his cell phone and all of that, but there was no answer. So all day Monday, I was home and I did some YouTube videos and stuff, and I was thinking, well, I hope he's okay. And something's not right. Something is not right. Finally, Monday goes, nothing. Yesterday, no news. Yesterday either. Then suddenly, early this morning, phone rings. It's him. He actually had a food poisoning so bad that they actually took him in the hospital, and it was apparently really, really bad. That at some point it was almost they were almost kind of going a little nuts. And he called this morning because for the first time he had access to his phone and could call somebody and say, you know. So he called up. He said, hey, I'm in the hospital. So, of course, I went to see him today. But so he called up again just as the show started because he didn't know I have a show. And he said, so I said, oh, so how are you doing? So he's starting to feel a little better now. But it was crazy. I mean, you know, that when you have someone that you know that if he's not there and doesn't call, there must be something really bad going on because it's not that kind of person that's just going to, you know, not show up. So he's doing better. Apparently, he's going to leave the hospital tomorrow if all goes well. So food poisoning. Got to be careful. Jeff King, nice to have you here. Kevin J. Apollo, nice to have you on board from New Jersey, WS2H. Old Radio Man, nice to have you here from Northeast Tennessee. William, KC9TVN, nice to have you here. Says hello to Elizabeth, pretty cool. What else do we have? Jeff King is from Jacksonville, Florida. Dave Todd, nice to have you here from Niagara, Ontario. Vintage AZ Audio, nice to have you here. Mitch Plen, nice to have you here from Buckeye, Arizona. Good DXing, says Mitch. Shane Green, have you ever heard a wildlife tracking collar on VHF? Not on VHF, but I did on UHF. There was some tracking collar from wild geese that they were doing tracking, and I had read an article, and that's a long time ago. I'm pretty sure we can still hear them today because I know that there's still a lot of them. But it was in the 90s, and I had read an article, I think it was in Monitoring Times, and they were talking about some of the frequencies that some of these were transmitting on. And I remember I had done some research to try to find out what frequency they were using, and I had found some UHF frequencies for the one that they were using on the wild geese. And I left one of my scanner radios on that frequency, and behold, one day I was hearing the data bursts from the tracking collar. So it was kind of nice, and I knew it was that. It couldn't be anything else. Roughest Newt, my mother brought me a crystal kit when I was 12 or 13. I have loved radio in all its form ever since. You know, that's the thing. When there's often happens that I tell everybody, remember to, you know, everybody I know, my friends, I always tell everybody to, you know, open the minds of your children with the maximum amount of different things that they can try and they can do. That was, you know, what I did as an uncle, because my nephews and nieces, I would actually go outside and we would have model rocketry. We would go outside and I would bring walkie-talkies, and we would have fun with that and play hide and seek, but with walkie-talkies. We would go outside and do all sorts of science experiments that I would find on the internet that we could do at home or do outside. So all of that together, you know, remote control planes, remote control trucks and cars, that opened up the minds of these my nephews. You know, one of my nephew went into a university in physics, for example. But you know, it's all partly due to when you expand the mind of your children with all sorts of different things like that. Well, there's something that might, you know, they unfortunately were not and never really into radio. But although my nephew Gabriel does have my Texan PL450 and listens a little bit apparently. Radio Week signal work. Nice to have you here, my friend. And both MLA30s are up. Snowy Utah. KS7LNP. Nice to have you here, Pat. Vintage AZ picked up a nice Realistic Pro 2042 scanner. Cool. John W., nice to have you on board from East Tennessee. And he says it's nice to tune in the program this evening. Cool. Cam Jones, nice to have you here. Alme Sam, nice to have you on board. Really likes the LMLA 30. It's an amazing antenna for the price. Can tell you that. Jerry, call the army, dig you out. But 30 centimeters, 1 foot is not enough for the army. We do it ourselves. And in Newfoundland was crazy. They had like a 3 to 4 feet of snow. It was really, really crazy. Keegan, nice to have you here from Northwest Arkansas. Radioactive, nice to have you here. W7 WXV. Carol in Prineville in Oregon, USA. Rufus Newt, as most big professional experts say, we practice law, we practice medicine, we practice radio. Matt says, was literally over 70 Fahrenheit on Sunday and 20 on Monday. That's crazy, eh? When that happens. Fort Row Massive, nice to have you on board. When it snows in Ireland, the whole place shuts down. I know you guys aren't used to that. Here it's just, Jerry DX, Bunham will be happy with 30 centimeters of snow. Yep. Gerald Sombra Nuas, nice to have you here from Brazil. Pretty cool. What else do we have? Nicholas Heyer, nice to have you here. Nick, K9XN, Northwest Indiana. Dave Todd says the snow will be starting almost as we speak, according to the radar. Not going to be good commute tomorrow. I am retired. Well, I am fortunate enough to work from home, so you know what? When there's a big snowstorm, I just look outside and I'm like, oh, that's nice, while everybody else goes crazy. So, and that often actually brings me to, the people telling me, well, you like snowstorms only because you work from home. Yeah, that's it. Oh, man. Joseph Ickenbaum, nice to have you here from Northern California. Okay. Keegan has reception tonight with his dad's W9JEF ICOM IC7300 transceiver. Nicholas says shortwave calls are awesome. Nice certificate. James Farley, nice to have you here. Tony Sima, nice to have you on board. Keep that foot of snow there. We're bask in 40s and 50s, but while you're having snow, we will be having off and on heavy rain. Yeah, you guys in the U.S. are mostly rain, and at the borders, like freezing rain. Thank you, Matt, for the nice sweater comment. Matambale says hello to Elizabeth. Matt also says, everybody says hello to Elizabeth. It's always nice to have her on board, saying hi from email. What else do we have? David Martin, nice to have you on board. Getting around in Montreal using the metro subway, I found convenient regardless of the weather. Spend some time in the underground city if it gets too bad above ground. That is one thing that's nice. I remember a Sunday that I was out with friends, and it was really, really cold. And it was like, we were like at minus 20 and windy outside. So, we went out for breakfast, and we were downtown, and we look at each other and says, you know what? How about we spend the full day on the underground in Montreal? Because here, for those that don't know, the city of Montreal, downtown Montreal, has a huge underground city. So you can actually, there's somebody I know that lives downtown, and her apartment building where she lives, there's a door that actually gets into the subway. So she can go down in a minus 20 degree weather without any coat, anything, just wearing a shirt like this. Go through that door, and by the underground tunnels, she could, if she wants, she could go make her groceries, buy all sorts of stuff. And there's kilometers of underground tunnels with stores and stuff here. It's crazy. She can go and get a coffee. She could go eat at tons of restaurants without ever going outside and go back to her apartment. And actually, that is why she rented there. It's very super expensive, but that's why she lived there. and she loves staying there because she can actually go down without ever going outside in the wintertime, and she loves it. She loves that. So here we have a really, really huge underground city. You can spend quite a big amount of time going all the way through all the tunnels and never go outside, actually. And it's good in the summertime sometimes also, because we think of bad weather, of cold weather, where instead of being outside, well, we're going to go in the underground city. But in the summertime, when it's too hot, there's another reason to go in the underground city. When it gets too hot and humid, you go inside. It's all air conditioned. So you go inside and you're okay. You're at the air conditioning and you enjoy a beautiful day. So the only thing missing is, of course, the sun. Mike Jam, nice to have you here, my friend. Prasad Asaldekar, nice to have you here from India. Elisa Damaskino, nice to have you here from Brazil. William Hampton, nice to have you on board from Grove City, Ohio. Mike Jam from New Hampshire. James de Calais, bonjour et bienvenue de la France. Nice to have you on the show. 1h14 du matin, 1 in the morning over there in France. So I hope you're not too tired. Trucker Daddy, nice to have you here. John in Quebec. Bienvenue de Sherbrooke, toujours un plaisir. I had an uncle in Sherbrooke. In my young days, when we were going to uncles, we would go to two of my uncles, and the parents, and we would play. They would play. They would have their Saturday evening playing cards, and I would watch TV. And my uncle in Sherbrooke had a huge. So you had kind of an interior, it was like the stairs were kind of the middle interior. And basically what happened is that we had, in there, he had a huge train set that was all done. It was like really beautiful. So, of course, when my parents would say we are going to see my uncle in Sherbrooke, I was always like, yeah, no problem. I'm going to play with the trains. I'm going to have fun, And that was the thing. It was really, really cool. And I was always happy to go there. We had another uncle that we would go to at Quebec City. And I remember the last few times when I was like 13, I would go to Quebec City to my uncle's, and I would bring along my, it was maybe 12 years old, I would bring along my multi-band radio, actually. And we would spend the weekend there, so we would sleep over and come back on the Sunday. And I would bring my multi-band radio. I remember bringing my multi-band radio there. I remember one thing is my uncle in Quebec had he had purchased a small AM pocket radio. It was kind of army green-ish. And he had purchased that at a Kmart, because we didn't have a lot of them here, but we did have some Kmarts. So when I, he knew I was going there, and I liked, I had my multi-band radio all the time. So I go there, and he shows me the little portable radio, and he says, well, I purchased it, but it doesn't work. So he says, you want it? I don't know, maybe you can find out why it doesn't work. I don't know. So I pick up the radio, and I open the little door, and there's a 9-volt battery in it. So, I removed the 9-volt battery, and I changed it with a 9-volt battery I had with me. And, of course, he looks at me and says, oh, that battery's new. It's not a battery. And as soon as I popped in my 9-volt battery, the radio started working. He actually had a dead battery at the store. And he looked at me and says, well, you're a wise guy, eh? Change the battery. Well, it's the first logical thing to do. Let's try it with another battery. Maybe the power source isn't good. And if it still doesn't work, then I would have looked at other things. But I could see in his face that little moment of, man, if I knew, I would not have given him the radio. So anyways, nice to have you here from Sherbrooke, Trucker Daddy. Dave Belisle, nice to have you here. WA1UJA from New Hampshire. Bantam Bali says, some people are so reliable that, yes, if they don't show up, something is up. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that guy is like that. I was worried. I was like, oh, man, something happened. There was no other explanation than something happened. Charlie, W8CFO. Nice to have you here in Central Ohio. Kevin J. Napalo has Radio Slovakia, 7780 kilohertz. And what else do we have? Raffleman 336. Nice to have you here. And 8UCN. From freezing rain in southwest Ohio. Yeah, you guys in the northern portions of the U.S. are getting freezing rain with the storm coming up. Here it's going to be only snow, apparently. Fort Worth Massive, is he watching now? No, he's not watching this show. I don't think he would have a lot of interest in this show, actually. Maybe just, they have passed the time at the hospital. Sidvik, nice to have you here, my friends, from CYQX. Prasad, wish him fast recovery. What else do we have? Lynn Crosby, SDR is suddenly defined as saying, I saw it on the radio. Yes, absolutely. Kevin Wood, used to hear fishing buoys, beacons above 1500 kilohertz. I've not heard them lately. Noise, maybe. It could be noise, or maybe they've changed to some kind of new technologies also. Levi Nathan, nice to have you on board. 2:20 a.m. local time in Israel. So that's late. That's late. Anybody else getting audio repeats of the live show? Anything happening? Weird. William Powell, nice to have you on board from Seattle. What else do we have? Kevin Wood, rockets and shortwave radio are fun to share with the beans. Yep. I still have some, actually over there, I see them from here. I still have 9 model rocket motors, so I should do some makeshift rockets and send them up. It was a lot of fun, and having them come back down with parachute and stuff. Radionut R, nice to have you on board. Speaking of monitoring times, I have a complete collection from when they first started in '84. Cool. I had so many magazines. I had at some point, in the 80s, I would purchase, so I had a Commodore computer. So in the 80s, I would purchase Compute's Gazette, Compute, Ahoy. I had a few computer shoppers. I would purchase Sky and Telescope, Astronomy magazine. I would purchase, when I started noticing they existed, Monitoring Times, and what's the name of that other one? The radio magazine that was also Popular Communications. So imagine, I would buy all of that now when I started working, because when I didn't work, I had only money for Computer's Gazette. I had the money for when I would put the trash out and stuff. So I would buy Computer's Gazette and Compute, and that's it for the computers. But when I started working, I would buy 14, 15 different magazines every month. And man, I had piles of magazines, and those were really heavy. Unfortunately, when I moved, the first thing that I looked at is, come on, I can't bring all of these magazines with me. That's way too heavy. And unfortunately, I threw them away in the garbage. And today I'm thinking about it, and it's like, oh man, so many nice magazines in there. Brian Penny in Cape Cod, Massachusetts. Nice to have you here. Paul is on the other side of the room, cleaning himself in the chair right now. Dave O'Toole from Dublin, Ireland. And by the way, Brian, I got your the website you sent me with the cat stuff, and you know what? It's totally true. what they say in there is exactly the way that we react with a cat. One of the best example is I think it was yesterday, the day before. I was sleeping on my right side, on my left side, sorry, and he was sleeping with his paws on my arm, and I just couldn't anymore. I was like, man, I need to change position. I actually stayed like that, not sleeping, for at least an hour before I just like, okay, I can't anymore. I gotta move. Chris Coley, nice to have you here. 2E0 HMA in London, England. Stephen Wood, nice to have you on board. So Dave O'Toole from Dublin, Ireland. Really nice. Matambali, worst case on the snow day, the floor can be a little cold. Charlie, W8CFO, 2 days to find a sensitive. Got my first crystal set on my 14th birthday. Wow. Chuck Yunkin, do you like the IAC 30 ICOM radio? Yes, no. I don't recommend anybody buy it. That's my official take on it. For the price that you will pay for that, you can have better radios. Honestly, for the price you're gonna pay for that, I would probably go for a Whistler TRX1 that decodes more different digital modes and buy a shortwave portable with it. Unfortunately, it's okay. It performs okay. And as I've been using and treating it with the attenuator and stuff, it's okay. Nothing more. Edvaldo Lemes, nice to have you here from Brazil. Nice to have you on board. PY4001SWL. So pretty cool. Esteban, nice to have you here from the Canary Islands. Prasad says, we practice law, medicine to make a living. We practice radio for our own satisfaction. Not getting the right word, spending dearly from our pocket. Yeah, but then again, I'm kind of partly living off of my radio stuff. So I have that possibility. It's kind of nice. But yes, it's a hobby, 5010, who's that? Let me just check it out here. 5010. I got something very, very, very weak. Isn't that WRMI? Let me just check out here. 5010 at this time is 03 to 01 UT. Radio Slovakia in Spanish, broadcast from Okeechobee, Florida. So if it's Spanish, it's Radio Slovakia, broadcast via WRMI in Spanish to the Caribbean. So that's what you're listening to. WRMI in Okeechobee, Florida. I stumbled across it one day. Keegan says hello to Elizabeth. Fort Worth massive, so no sunlight. No, if you go to the underground city, that's for sure. Keegan has 3330 CHU S9 Plus with noise, static crashes, fading at time. Rufus Newt, I worked in downtown Toronto, no daylight. I did not like it. Hey Jeff, nice to have you on board. Is it possible to find any bluegrass music broadcasts on shortwave? Possibly pirate transmissions? Yeah, there might be pirates. The other possibilities for bluegrass type music. So we have a lot of music coming out of the American broadcasters in the last few months. And I would check frequencies of WRMI and WTWW. They would be the ones. Yeah, I'm hearing the Spanish. I'm hearing it better now. 5010 Spanish, Radio Slovakia. Definitely sounds like Radio Slovakia. What else do we have? Try WRMI or WTWW. They have different types and different styles of music that they play from time to time. WWCR also is to look at the different frequencies. That would be probably pretty much the only broadcasters that would have that. Radioactive has strong Stanag on 6443.4 upper sideband. David, KJ4CMY, nice to have you on board. We moved and I haven't had any time for radio. Well, you got to fix that. Now that you're moved, you're going to have to put back those radio up and start doing it again. So, Charlie says, send last message prematurely. Took me 2 days to find a sensitive spot on the crystal with the cat whisker. Wow. It's, we had to work to receive signals back then. Kevin Wood worked downtown Toronto up to the mid-'80s. There was a bit of an underground city then. Yeah, the one here is pretty big, though. I think we are one of the biggest in terms of underground city. Steve in Australia, nice to have you on board from the future. You guys are in Thursday morning. Mika Delmage, nice to have you on board, my friend from Alberta, Canada. Nick is getting 4724 HF Global Command Emergency Action Messages. He says, very quick message from Andrews Air Force Base. Glenn Zeckman, nice to have you on board from Tennessee, wet Tennessee. Lee Thompson, nice to have you on board, WA8QFE, from former Ohio resident. Matambali still listening to Radio Martin DRM, 7340, 74, 350, still not getting audio, but decoding a bit more steadily. I don't hear it. Radio Marti, I think it's pretty strong. I see the DRM signal here, really, really strong on the waterfall. I don't know do I have Dream still installed here? Let me just check it out here. Dream. What about Dream? I need to check out if I still have that. Okay, Dream. Let's this PC. If something decodes, that would be one. Program files. Yeah, I got it somewhere. That's for sure. Trying to find where, but I don't. Dream. Graphics, yeah. I can't find it, but the DRM signal is pretty good. I have to say. I need to check that out. Yeah, I don't know where it is. I'm trying to find where Dream is on my PC, and I don't find it. Dream is the DRM decoder for yeah, I'm not finding anything. Results here. Dream. I thought I had it installed there, but I don't seem to find it. Anyways, I can't imagine many Cubans decoding DRM. So, Kevin says, severe audio repeats. That is weird. Nicolas has no audio problems. Mohidar Kana. Expect the SDR Play RSPDX review coming up in the next But for Wednesday, maybe before the weekend arrives, we'll try to get the full review. The full review. So, David, KJ4 CMY. When I moved, I had to get rid of all my old magazines, including years of monitoring times. It was hard, but my shack is still full of stuff. It will take weeks to get my shack office in order. Yeah. I mean, these are heavy. Magazines are so heavy. Just crazy. I mean, wow. Bobby Burgess remembers PC World Computer Shopper. The computer shopper I never purchased. It was my my sister that had a Commodore also, and my brother-in-law would buy the computer shopper. And when we would go to my sister's, after he had gone through the computer shopper every month, he would give me the computer shoppers, and he would give me the old ones, and I would go through them. K6YYL, nice to have you here. Kimberly from California. Pretty crazy. Jim, nice to have you on board. Jim Ricky, nice to have you here. Jim Ricky. 5800 WRMI with Supreme Master TV S9. Radioactive. What was for supper? We're having Subway tonight. I had pasta with rosé garlic sauce, which was very good. Actually, I actually ate too much. I'm doing the show and I feel like my stomach is kind of overloaded. Rifleman 336 filled 3 times 208-liter recycling cans with both Popcom, monitoring times, and numerous other magazines. Wow. Pretty crazy. 3328 USB weak. Anyone knows who it is? Says Dave Thought. Let me check it out here. 3328 upper sideband. Am I hearing anything? Not hearing anything right now. It could be fishermen. It could be a lot of stuff. Levin Nathan says, Ham magazines, QST, CQ, 73s. I had a collection from 86 to 2000. I donate to New Ham in those days. We expect every month like a kid's. You know, I remember I must have been the annoying kid that would go to the magazine stand here at the mall. And I would annoy the heck of the guy every month saying, when's the next Compute Gazette coming? When's the next Compute? Why is it that last month I didn't have my Compute Gazette? Why is it that I'm missing a month now? You know, and the guy just didn't have any answers. The guy was just like, it's not there, it's not arrived yet. Why is not arrived yet? I would go there like I don't know how many times every month just to get the new Compute Gazette. I just couldn't wait for it to actually arrive. Every month it was it was something that it was like, you know, I would go on Fridays evenings or on Saturdays, and it was like, I want to see if the new Compute Gazette is there. And sometimes I would go several days in a row when it was about the date that you would receive them until he got it. I must have been an annoying guy with the newsstand guy. Kevin Woods, 5830, BBC from the Austria transmitter site. Am I hearing it? I've got nothing on 5830. 5850, WRMI, Radio Slovakia S9. Marcos Polizzelli, nice to have you here, my friend. Garger, nice to have you here. Mike Hanna 261, nice to have you here. Nice to you got it. Also now 3308. 3308. Anything there for me? Don't seem to have anything here. Larry, nice to have you on board, Larry, from Stormy, Georgia. Yeah, there's a lot of the magazine, like Fort Road Massive says, there's a lot of magazines that are now on PDFs that you can actually view online. The Computers Gazette, I'm having fun. There's a lot. All the Computers Gazette are online, and you can watch, like, look at the PDFs and look at the old Computers Gazette and Computers. It's kind of fun, actually. Rodolfo 65, nice to have you here from New York City. Autumn Valley says every once in a while there's an audio repeat. Happens less often now. Weird. Everything's kind of normal here, so I don't know what could be, unless something's happening with YouTube. David Martin, what did Frank Sinatra say to the CW operator complaining about his keying technique? I did it my way. I like that. I'm actually hearing 3308 here. I'm hearing somebody talk right now. (3308) upper sideband. There's definitely someone talking. So I don't know what it is. Randy, Riverside, California. Nice to have you here. Brent in Brockville, Ontario, Canada. Nice to have you on board. Keegan has Radio Havana Cuba S9 plus 504 kHz in English. Jim, what is the handheld in the back of you, not the ICOM? The handheld, not the ICOM. The only other handheld I have is an ICOM also, which is the ICOM ICR 20. So I've got the ICR 30 and the ICR 20. I don't believe there's any other handhelds here. I put it in that direction because when I move, if I bump into the table, it might fall over. So I put it on the side when I don't use it, so it doesn't fall over. So it's ICOM ICR 30 and 20. Simon Templar, nice to have you here, my friend. Stephen Wood says Pirate Zeke's Attic is on 4073 upper sideband. Let's check it out here. 4073. Oh, it's really good. Fair reception here in Cape Cod. Says he is leaving but keeps playing music. I got some talk here. 4073 upper sideband. Right now it's some talk. So I guess that's the pirate station. Rufus Newt has 5040 strong. Matambali still has old QSTs and new ones. MT Silver Stars still have many well-worn electronics illustrated and popular electronics. Pretty cool. Joseph's got 4073, barely hitting S5 over here in Half Moon Bay, California. Wow. Making it all the way to California. Jay Lyle, nice to have you here. WA9211SWL in Johnston City in southern Illinois. Pretty cool. Rufus Newt programmed so many cassette tapes with code from Compute. Was great magazine. Did the same before I got the first floppy disk. Brent, do the SDR Play units with metal enclosures have better RFI protection? Technically, it should. But, that said, the RSP-1A, which is plastic enclosure, does have a metal paint coating inside it. So, there's some shielding there. It's interesting because there's a mix of comments on this. I don't have a metal enclosure on my RSP-1A, and some people purchased the metal enclosure to have the RSP-1A inside it. Some say they've seen a difference. Some say they've not seen a difference. Maybe it could have to do with the noise, the amount of noise within our room. I mean, the RSP1A needs to be plugged into a computer, so that means it's pretty much in a high noise environment itself. Maybe for some people they could see a difference. But remember that the inside of the RSP1A's plastic box is actually coated with a metal paint to remove or to lower the RFI. Of course, when you look at the RSPDX and when I pick it up, the metal enclosure is sturdy. It's a pretty good metal enclosure. So I would say if it does, it probably does help on the RSPDX because of the thicker metal shielding that it gives. But it's, it's something to prove. Kevin Wood, hearing 4073. Cool. Rodolfa is hearing the Pirate 4073. Cool. Simon Templar not hearing anything on 4073 in Portland, Oregon. Moider Kana says only magazine I cared about was Electra. I remember seeing some of those. Desmond Crean, nice to have you on board from Belfast, Ireland. Dave Todd has Marsnet on 3242 upper sideband. Yeah, Waterfall is amazing for that. I mean, so many things that I actually have heard or noticed is only because I looked at the Waterfall and noticed that there was something popping up somewhere. And by curiosity, well, what you do is you go and you click to hear what it is. And I don't know how many times I've seen a signal, while searching for something else or while actually looking or listening to something. I noticed that there's something down on the Waterfall at a frequency that I'm like, what's that signal? And it's interesting. It's fun for that. Keegan, 5990, China Radio International, Spanish S9 Plus. Living Nathan, do I recommend the ICOM ICR30? I can't. I can because it's too, it has too much problems coping with overloading in an environment where there's a lot of signals. Kevin Wood says 4073, probably East Coast only. Joseph, though we are approaching sunset, might get better propagation. Yes, for sure. For sure. What else we have? William Helms, nice to have you here from Florida. B3J8, nice to have you on board. Says, used to love Popular Communications. Excellent articles. Still have a few. Really enjoy your live streams. Thank you. Nice to have you here. Terry, KB9IHU. I was a bigger fan of Popular, Monitoring Times. For me, Monitoring Times was more radio professionally oriented. But Popular Communications was, I would buy it and go through it. There was some interesting stuff in there. Remember, when those times were the only shortwave schedules we would have, there would be a few pages with English language schedules. It was the way we could get kind of a list of shortwave broadcasters in English. I mean, that did not exist really much because we didn't have internet back then. So 4073 signed off. That's what I thought because I'm not hearing anything anymore. Tad Enough. Nice to have you here. Newbie in Michigan, listening on his Kato KA 1102. Cool. Nice to have you here. Photon Massive, would rubber not be a better shield? Well, not really, because rubber is not, shielding is done with metal. So rubber would not technically shield. No problem, Brent. Have a great dinner, Matambale. On Sam says Faraday cages for all. Man. What else do we have? Keegan is listening to CFRX S5 on 6070. Oxford Shortwave log. Nice to have you here. I don't know why the... probably by accident. Why can't I add this? I don't know. Oh well. So nice to have you here at our Oxford Shortwave log. What else do we have? Yeah, it's probably an accident more than anything else. Simon Templar, monitoring times was awesome. Popcom was good too. Tony Turtle, nice to have you on board. If water can fuel a bus, I'm sure we can make some things small using water to generate 30 watts of power for a rig. Yeah, the problem is it's not the water itself. It's separating the water into its constituent elements of hydrogen. It's the hydrogen within the water that they use for it. And yeah, here CFRX is a morning thing. Actually, CFRX is my morning radio. I usually get up, so, you know, I'm sorry guys that you guys that have to, you know, get up at 5 a.m. to go to work, but I usually get up around 9 a.m. here. And at 9 a.m., shortwave bands don't have that much to offer most of the time here. So my morning listening is I turn on my my computer and I tune CFRX on the RSPDX. That's my morning listen for an hour or two, where I kind of hear what's happening in Toronto. And, you know, of course, I'll go through the bands for amateur radio signals and stuff. Look at propagation, 27 megahertz, stuff like that. How many time has China Radio International 6180? Well, actually, Fort Worth Massive, it's good for preventing... so it will protect you from being electrocuted if electricity is present. Absolutely. But not as a shield for... Because the reason for metal enclosure in a radio, like the SDR play, is to block radio frequency interference. So that is not blocked by rubber. J. Lyle liked monitoring times the best. Always had a subscription to that. I really miss it. Like flipping through a paper magazine. It was, you know, there's some nice side to this. Absolutely. For sure. V3KRP, nice to have you on board. Fast Eddie in Thunder Bay, Ontario. Fast Load, nice to have you here from Montreal. Dave Todd says, I was mainly a scanner, CB, and HF utility kind of listener. Popcom was my favorite. Jane Dagger, nice to have you here from the Mojave Desert. Dance, dance, drink, drink. So, we are down the list, and it's nice to have everybody on board. We're going to start just question by question, slowly. And if anybody hears anything special on the radio, let us know. We'll tune around and see what we can hear. So, like I said, we have Brandon in the UK that sent us a series of questions he'd like me to actually answer tonight. First question. He was listening to the BBC Ascension Islands on 11810 about a week ago. And from his location, he could hear an echo, as if two transmissions were going on 11810 from the BBC. There was a slight delay, but it was the same programming. So his question was, is it that they're using two transmitters on 11810? And why would there be an echo if they did so? So to answer your question, that happens from time to time. you'll tune into a shortwave broadcast and you'll hear a slight delay. You notice it's the same program. It's just there's a slight delay. Well, they're not transmitting because it could happen. Okay, honestly, that could happen. It could be possible that, for example, a station would broadcast to North America on a frequency and broadcast to Asia on the same frequency. Why? Because in normal, and normal is a very big word here in propagation. In normal propagation times, they don't interfere each other because they don't reach each other. But that said, sometimes it could happen. But what you are hearing here is not that. The fact that there's an echo means that one of the transmissions is actually taking a lot more time to reach you. There's a lot more distance than the other. So if you would listen to, say, a signal coming from Ascension Islands and a signal coming from the west coast of North America, there would be no delay. It's the distance being not that much of a difference in kilometers, you wouldn't notice a difference. The fact that there's an echo means that you are listening to the signal and it's actually propagating by two paths at the same time. And this happens when there is some unique propagation happening. An opening that makes that signal capable of going all around the world and coming back to you and still being heard. It could be because it's gray line propagation. It could be of other phenomena. So basically what you were listening to is that you were listening to the BBC, Ascension Islands, direct. And that echo that was a little further, that went all around the world to your receiver. So it happens from time to time. And typically when there's an echo in a broadcast, it's because you are hearing what's called short path, long path. It's the signal coming from directly from the transmitter and all around the world from the transmitter also at the same time. And it takes special propagation characteristics for this to happen. Anybody that has listened to shortwave regularly for a while has heard a transmission with echo in it. That's for sure. So that is what you were hearing. It's actually a short path, long path propagation characteristic. So question number 1 is answered. What else do we have? Where's Paul? He's in the chair behind me, sleeping. Actually, on the other side where the camera is. He's sleeping in the chair. J. Lyle, I don't know what the deal was. Last night I heard Cuba, Gene Scott, and 2 more stations on 6090 at the same time on 4 different receivers. Never heard Cuba there. Yeah, Cuba is on 6100, so, Cuba is always messed up. And Cuba is always in different places and all over the place. 6090, we know it's that Dr. Gene Scott thing. It's coming from Caribbean Beacon. That is in on the island of Anguilla. Let me just check here updated schedules to see if there's anything else. So Dr. Gene Scott is there. Cuba is not stated to be using this, but you know what? It's not impossible that Cuba shows up for some. They had some. They did some mistake in the programming of the transmitter, or an image that you could have had. But 4 different receivers, obviously something was happening. But Cuba is always messed up. It could be a mix of transmitter also. Sometimes when a station broadcasts with high power from a same transmitter site on 2 or 3 different frequencies, sometimes there's a mix in the oscillation of the different transmitters, and it creates a spurious signal, which is on a different frequency. And that is something that could have happened also. All of this is possible. I see that Cuba is not registered to be on that frequency right now, But the problem with Cuba is they actually decide to use a frequency for transmitting, and they just get on it and don't care about the rest of the planet. That is something that happens very often. You know, I'm hearing something on 6090 right now. What is that here? According to this, 6090. At this time, should it could be okay? It could be Dr. Gene Scott stuff. It's not very strong though. But but you know, my Radio Vandy Cuba is always messing up everywhere. Yeah, well, most of the time it's short pat, long pat. It's the only times when you get an echo. Absolutely. Stephen Wood, Popular Communications was an end of year publication back in the early 70s. The 71 issue has extensive articles from Richard Wood for beginners in prose. Cool. Yeah, on mobile phones, actually, you know what is the problem with Fox Fort Road Massive? So it doesn't. I haven't had that happen in a long time. But in the early days, when I had my first cell phone, sometimes you'd have an echo, and you know why there's an echo? Because there's a so when you actually talk on your cell phone, the receiving end. So you're talking. The person at the other end is receiving that call in the phone. Part of that call is actually feedback into the circuit. So that means that when you're talking, you might hear yourself. And when that happened, it was because of there's a circuit. The way that the cell phone works is that on the network there's kind of a muting of that, so that you don't have that echo. Sometimes it doesn't work, and that's when that echo canceling feature is going berserk. You start hearing yourself in an echo. Larry Stevens, nice to have you here, and says hello to Elizabeth. M. Phillips, nice to have you on board. Got 6125 loud and clear, Spanish maybe. 6125 is Radio Marti from the United States. It's very strong here, actually. Very, very strong. It's 9 plus... So you're reaching S9 plus 40 here. It's extremely strong. Radio Marti, broadcasting to Cuba. Keegan has Vatican Radio in Portuguese S9 on 7305. Madius, let's have you here. Ivan Psiga, do you recommend... any New York Kiwi radio near you to listen along? Well, there's a few. You know what? If you want to listen along to whatever I am tuning here, the best bet is to find either a SDR in the state of New York, and the state of New England, and the state of Vermont. These are the closest to being here. You might want to try some. I know there's a couple in Ontario that you could try for also. These would be the best, the ones that are closest to my area here in southern Quebec. Keegan has Voice of Vietnam S9 from WHRI transmitter. Jane Dagger, 5850 Spanish is WRMI. And I believe it's 5850 as so I'm hearing it right now. I believe that's Radio Slovakia in It's something in Spanish anyways. Let me just check it out here. It's WRMI, that's for sure. 5850 at 01 to 0130. So, okay, it's Studio DX. It's our show called Studio DX. And let me just listen here. 100. Yeah, it's Italian. Studio DX in Italian from WRMI. That sounds, that's Italian. That's Italian. Kevin Wood, piano music, 6090 Spanish. Yeah, I heard Spanish too. It could be Radio Havana, Cuba. Kimberly likes my sweater. Cool. Thank you very much. Purchased that last year. Actually, Paul the cat was sleeping on it for a while. Oh, man. Could you show how to decode FSK? Well, what type of transmission in FSK? Because there's, MFSK32. There's all sorts of things like that. And what software are you using? Like FLDG or MultiPSK or... Stephen Wood, 6090 is Iran in Spanish right now. Oh, really? Stephen Wood. 6090, Iran in Spanish. I didn't see that in the list. Let me check it out here. Oh, you're right. Voice of Islamic Republic of Iran in Spanish. That's what's in Spanish right now on 6090. Oh. I don't know why I didn't see that earlier. I didn't see it. So, Voice of the Islamic Republic of Iran. We've got our signal, a mysterious signal on 6090. Undercover. Nice to have you here, my friend. Almeisam, 6000. Well, here it's Radio Havana, Cuba, real strong in English. But I know that the Voice of Turkey is also on. So if you hear it in English, it's Cuba. If you hear it in Turkish, you're hearing the Voice of Turkey, because the Voice of Turkey is broadcasting right now to Central Asia in Turkish. 01 to 03 on 6000. So that's an example of two broadcasts going on the same frequency. But because one is targeted to Central Asia and Cuba is targeting North America, normally they shouldn't interfere with each other. But there are times when it did happen that I heard Turkey and Cuba at the same time, depending on propagation conditions. Kevin, 6130, Radio Romanian English. Yeah, not too bad. Unfortunately, its big problem is that you got to be in upper sideband because the Radio Marti is so strong on 6125. Makes it difficult here. Keegan has also Radio Romania, and that's one on 7325. It's kind of weak here. It's there, but it's weak. 6130 is better, but you gotta avoid what else do we have? Mark Stevens has 5850 super strong. 5850 is actually broadcast towards Western North America. It's a little weak here. It's probably stronger as you get to the west of North America. Dave Todd likes K3FEF for close SDR. It is in Northeast Pennsylvania. So that could be an interesting one. Yeah, it is Italian. Yeah, you know, Italian and Spanish, well, it's not the same, but it might sometimes fool you. But I think it's Italian. Are Italians listening at this time of night? Look, it's a broadcast to North America, so it's for Italians in North America. I mean, so I'm not getting 6090. And 355 Radio Marti Spanish S9 Plus. Rufus Newt, great info, guys. Get on Facebook, giving me lots to tune. Joseph getting 6090 S7, but somehow barely audible. Yeah, well, the problem with Iran, Joseph, and I've seen that in the daytime because I've been able to pick up their English language broadcasts at 1920 UT. And the problem is the modulation is so low that it's difficult to actually hear. Yep. So, you know. Radio Marti is strong even in Buenos Aires. I think they probably use a lot of power in that antenna. What does S9 Plus means? That's a good question, Yvonne. You know what? When I say we take for granted some of the things we talk about, and as we do our hobby and we do things. So, S9 Plus is when you look at an S meter. So, wait a minute. Is there I'm just trying to see if there's something I could use as an S meter, but I don't have it. So, you've seen radios with a regular meter with a needle. There's one here on the realistic at the top here. So an S meter will show the strength of a signal. And it is, the first part of an S meter is what we call S units. And it's 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. When we cross 9, usually an S meter has a separate, and sometimes it's in red or it will be a different color grade. And then you'll see decibels or dBs, and it will say 10, 20, 30, 40, 60. So the first chunk is up to S9 and goes to roughly more, S9 is about 3/4 of the way up the S meter. And the rest of the S meter will be dBs. So instead of S9 or S units, because they could have used a S unit up to S10 or 12 or whatever, but somehow they decided to do it like that. So S9 Plus means that it's reaching that S9 unit kind of at the 3/4 point of the meter. Plus means it also goes stronger than that. So that's pretty much how it works. So S9 is the first S units, S1, S2, S3, S4, S5, S6, S7, and S9. Then you got a dB. So for example, when I'm saying S9 plus 40, it means that it's crossed the S9 barrier, and it is on the 40 dB on my meter. So it's stronger than S9. Simply put, S9 plus means stronger than S9 on a meter. It's difficult to try to explain an S meter when you don't have one to show also. Crazy. So, what else do we have? David Martin, S3 7345 8 kilohertz noise or signal. It's Radio Marti and DRM mod. 7345 Radio Marti was testing DRM, so maybe that's what you're seeing, David. Keegan has WBCQ 7490. I have no WBCQ at all on 7490 here. It rarely makes it here. For those that were asking, by the way, for the superstation on 9330 with 500 kilowatts, they blew one of the transformers blew up in the transmitter. They need a replacement part. So they're off the air because of that right now. Mark Stevens, PL880, still trying to figure out my meter, has in signal to noise ratio. All I know is higher number, better signal. Yeah, pretty much it. But, yeah, Ivan, that's the thing. It comes from the old analog meters that were in radios before. So just think of S9 as being roughly three quarters of the scale, and the rest of the scale is in a different measure. So S9 plus means it's higher than 3/4 of the scale of the meter, meaning it's pretty strong signal. Tad enough is getting 6090 very faint. VE3KRP has 5935, which is I think it's WWCR on 5935 S9. Kevin, World of Radio English from Glenn Hauser's World of Radio. Yeah, pretty good on 7780. And by the way, guys, if you if you are wondering if it's worth it to actually get yourself into the Canadian International DX Club and get the Messenger bulletin, well, Glenn Hauser has actually used a lot of the material in this February edition of the Messenger, and including my utility column, which he shared among his fans on his channel, on his IO group of radio, so World of Radio group. So that means that it's kind of nice, and that's why you should check it out. You can actually ask for a sample copy of the Messenger if you didn't do it so already at CIDX Club at yahoo.com. So I want to check it out here. You can ask Sheldon for a sample copy. CIDX Club at yahoo.com. So the Messenger February edition is now out, and it has some really nice articles. I've got several pages dedicated to what is the and the frequencies for the Civil Air Patrol in the United States for shortwave. It's one of the most active groups of shortwave frequencies from the U.S. Army, and there's a lot of nets and a lot of things going on with the Civil Air Patrol. So, my February utility column is dedicated to the Civil Air Patrol frequencies, and of course, lots more. There's so many things in the Messenger. Check it out, and if you haven't asked for a copy, and you know what? Why not become a member? I mean, it's really cheap. $10 for a year, $25 for 3 years. You'll be getting that electronic publication in the email every month, and you'll have the pleasure of reading so much information of the different bands of pirate radio. There's Arctic DX. There's the logging section where you could see what people were hearing. There's a QSL section by Mickey Delmage called Very Interesting. There's technical topics, of course, my utility column, and so much more. Check it out. I think it's a worthwhile little publication, and for a club publication, probably one of the most professional I've seen, honestly. And actually, Glenn Hauser shared a lot of the information this month. 7780, another DX program starting up. AWR Wavescan, which is also one of my favorite DX shows. Pretty good signal right now. 7780, AWR Wavescan. What else do we have? No problem, Jane Dagger. Mark Stevens says, still living the PL 880 radio, awaiting some help from my MLA 30 on the short, on the slow bar from China. Well, you'll have fun. Both together, you're probably gonna have a lot of fun with that, with the radio and that antenna. Stephen Wood 4920, tough copy but possible. China National Radio from Tibet. India also here, but music fits more with Tibet. Wow, you're hearing 4920. What's at this time on 4920? Let me just check it out here. So there's PBS Xijan. There's All India. One thing I'd like you to... Where are you located? I forgot where you're located. Stephen Wood. Because the music doesn't sound South American or anything, eh? Because there's a station here on 4920.8, 24 hours. La Voz del Pueblo from Peru in Spanish. La Voz del Pueblo. Apart from that, at this time, it's either La Voz del Pueblo, but it's off frequency. So if you see it at 4920.8, then it's definitely La Voz del Pueblo. I haven't heard that here at all, so I don't know. But apart from that, there's All India Radio is there, and PBS Xizan from China. So it depends where you are actually located. Jane Dagger, so 5935, really distorted. Maybe it's overloading. Artist Alecrafter's Kitchen, nice to have you on board. What do we have here? Brian Weidenheimer, nice to have you on board, my friend. Great conditions this weekend. This week was fun. Yeah, a lot of really nice conditions. It was kind of cool last weekend also to listen to the AMers on the amateur band. Ivan, what's on 7850? It should technically be CHU time signal out of Ottawa, Canada. So if you're hearing time pips, you should be hearing CHU Canada time signal. John McClure, nice to have you here. What else do we have? So it's a time signal station, Ivan. CHU is a time signal station. No, there's part of it that could be, but I mean, it's really just... What you should be hearing is beep beeps for every second, and then a mail and a announcement in French and English for the time. Ivan. V3KRP worked VY0ERC on FT8. Eureka weather station in Nunavut, 40 meters, about 90 minutes ago. Oh, wow. Wow. Eureka weather station. That is some really northern... that's probably one of the most northern places I've ever seen. I'm trying to... Wow. That is so cool. On 40 meters. Tad enough says Radio Marti Plasting just should learn Spanish. So, let's go to question number 2. Question number 2. Brandon says, I've always learned that in the middle of the night, lower frequencies are propagating. Higher frequencies usually are quiet. But something mysterious happened the other day. He says that there was a signal on 27 megahertz. And when he listened a little more closely, the station identified itself and was in North America. And it seemed to be some kind of CB citizens band signal, because I know that there's a CB band in North America. But it's midnight. How can this be? So, this can only happen in specific times. So 27 megahertz. You are right in thinking that in general, low frequencies are for nighttime and higher frequencies are for daytime. But there's different things that can come into play. First of all, depending on the time of year, sometimes some higher frequencies can propagate even when it's dark at your area. So one of the things you could check for is it daytime in part of the signal path. So you're talking about midnight UK. You say you're hearing a station from North America on 27 megahertz. It's winter, so it's pretty much darkness all across that path. So one other phenomena that exists that can actually do this, and usually it's very local, but it is sometimes transatlantic, and it's sporadic E-skip. Sporadic E-skip is not fully understood. There's a lot of speculation as to what actually does it. So sporadic E-skip is very strongly ionized patches of the ionosphere that can happen, and they can happen anytime, meaning they can happen in the middle of the night. When that happens, it opens up higher frequencies. And usually these patches are very dense, very, very good at propagating high frequencies. So that means you will have clear signals on very high frequencies, whatever time of the night. Some of that might be, and some we do think it might be in part due to weather. So thunderstorms and all of that might be actually ionizing the ionosphere in certain areas. So what you witness is probably a patch of ionized, sporadic E-skip ionized ionosphere, just placed correctly so that you could actually hear signals from North America to Europe in the middle of the night, in the middle of the darkness at 27 megahertz. So these are all sorts of little phenomena that actually happen and that are always interesting. And, you know, I always check 27025, which is that famous Super Bowl frequency. Why? Because I check for sporadic E-skip openings. So right now I just tuned because I had to. And these sporadic E-skip openings can happen at any time. There are specific times of the year where we know they happen more often. Typically at the solstice, so near December 21st, around there, or near June the 21st. Honestly, they can happen anytime, any month, any day. When it happens, it's pretty amazing, and it opens up the high frequencies. One of the very interesting aspects of this, and it reaches one of your questions here, because you say that in the UK, you were able to hear in the 30 to 50 megahertz range some FM signals coming from all over Europe a few times, and you were wondering if they were able to actually propagate through the same phenomena as shortwave radio through the ionosphere. And so I'll answer that question because it's kind of attached to that question that we're actually talking about, sporadic E-skip. In times of very high solar activity, or in times of sporadic E-skip openings, often the maximum usable frequency will reach extremely high levels. And when I say extremely high levels, there have been some accounts of FM stations in the 80 megahertz range, 90 megahertz range, actually propagating from really far away through what is skywave like shortwave. But for that, the patches need to be very, very ionized. And in times of high solar activity, and I've had that happen so many times in the past when we were at solar maximum, I would hear police stations or fire departments across the United States on my scanner radios in the 30 to 50 megahertz range. Also, another example of this is a couple of years back, there was a really strong opening of sporadic E-skip, and I actually could hear a ham station from Brazil on 50 megahertz. So that gives you an idea that when it's open and powerful, it can really, really act up and do a lot to enhance propagation of high frequencies. What else do we have? Dave Belford. Nice to have you on board. Nice to see you back. Foreboarding Noah, is there ham radio stuff on 80 meters? A lot of it. 80 meters at night is one of the most popular bands. It's open with tons and tons of signals. If I look at 80 meters right now here, 30, let me just put myself in the middle of it. I could see a lot of single sideband operators and lower sideband. And of course the bottom part is populated with Morse code. There's also some FT8. There's actually quite a lot of activity right now on 80 meters. What else do we have? David Martin, Kodar pulses blasts on 7918, 8113, and 8070. Kodar are chirps. So I don't know. I've never seen Kodar on that frequency. Honestly. Because Kodar is very wide band. Kodar usually is 20, 30, 40 kilohertz wide, doing little chirps constantly. Yeah, no age limit for ham radio and radio in general. That enough. Radio Romania International fading nicely on 6130, trying to get around Radio MRT 5 kilohertz over. Yeah, that's a tough one. Ivan, Kodar is a type of radar that actually measures ocean waves. Ikadarius, nice to have you here from Caperas Cove, Texas. Nice to have you on board. What else do we have? David, yeah, I'm just getting. Matt says, I'm not gotten really X on 6 meter yet, but about a year and a half ago, I heard a ham from Uruguay on SSB, 12 meter, loud and clear. So, cool. But, when sporadic, 6 meters is mostly sporadic E or very, very intense solar conditions. And that does, when it opens up, I mean, last summer I've heard some, I did hear some FT8 on 50 megahertz. Last summer, the furthest station I've heard, I think I heard a station in Mexico on 50 megahertz last summer. Usually when 10 meters open because of sporadic E-skip, or when there's sporadic E-skip that opens up 11 meters, Matt, go and check 50 megahertz. You'll be surprised. It happens very often that it's actually, there's actually some propagation there. Nerdy Gray Fox, nice to have you on board. And he's got his little Jack Daniels number 7. Cool, waiting his MLA30. Nick says some hams doing AM on 3880. Yep, absolutely. 3880, 3885, around there. Some AM mode hams. So, Well, I use my DX of my reception of DXing on 6 meters has been done with my mobile vertical wideband, which is very surprising, honestly. And you know what? You don't necessarily need that much of a fancy antenna, because what I've heard, when I heard Brazil and I heard Mexico last summer, was on FT8. And FT8 is pretty surprising. So you should try it. You'll at least DX. You have some. I'm sure you'll have some contacts in the US, even if your antenna isn't that, a Yagi or whatever. But And 8145. I got nothing on 8145. Rufus. Okay, stupid question. I have a hard time equating meters to frequencies. Is there any easy way to equate them? Meters to frequencies. Most of my meters to frequencies is kind of just learned, roughly. But if you want to do a quick, dirty job of calculating meters to frequencies, okay? Normally it's the 300. So what you'll do is 300 divided by the frequency in megahertz. So I'll give you an idea here with my calculator. So if you just remember 300 divided by the frequency, it's not exactly that. It's a little more precise that you could do, but for example, we all know that 7 megahertz, we call that band 40 meters. So 7 megahertz. So 300, so I'll put here 300, okay, and a calculator. And I'll divide it by something I'm listening to on 7.2 megahertz. And that equals to 41,666. So 40 meters, 41, you're pretty much there. An example is 30 meters, 10 megahertz, 10.100, or 10.10100 is called 30 meters. Well, 300 divided by 10 is what? It's 30. So 300 divided by the frequency in megahertz will give you a rough idea of what meter band you are on. Pretty much. Fast Eddie, I've worked 6 meters. Europe, Caribbean, South America. Best DX was KH2JU in Guam. Wow, that is amazing DX on 6 meters. What antenna were you using? Keegan has Radio Havana Cuba 9535. Let's check it out. 9535. Yep, hearing it here. Radio Havana Cuba 9535. Very, very strong signal coming from WRMI 9395. With some music from Tom Petty. Free Falling from Tom Petty on 9395 kilohertz. Really strong. S9 plus 30 over here on the RSPDX. Fairboding Noah. Where does ham radio come with low voice? Well, it doesn't necessarily come in with a low voice in general. It might be simply because the signals are too weak. Ikadarius says has a Sony ICF series shortwave 55 well-band receiver, and I'm surprised it still works after all this time. A lot of the radios, it's electronics. I mean, if they're well built, they last for an amazing amount of time. I mean, that Grundig here is 50 years old and works great. So it gives you an idea. Mark Stevens has also a an idea, downloading the ARRL bands chart. Nice visual reference. So that's an easy way to do so. Shane Green, what sort of log do you keep? Actually, my YouTube channel is my logbook somehow. When I hear something unusual, or even if I hear more usual stuff, I'll just make a video and post it on the YouTube channel. When I started doing the YouTube channel, my first idea at the beginning was I'll just post what I'm listening to. So it'll be a visual video guide of, of kind of logbook thing. But I used to have books. I still have them here somewhere. I've got thick books of logs from like the 80s and the 90s. Man, sometimes when I go back and check them out, it's just crazy. The stations that were on the air back then. I actually see one over there in the stuff that I have. Keegan 9640 Radio Vanny Cuba Spanish S9 fading. Roughest, thanks Joe. When you talk of the meter bands, I was having a hard time with frequencies. Yeah, that's once again, it's another when I always talk that sometimes we talk about something and we kind of forget that not everybody is in the same knowledge and might have a hard time with certain things. So it's like in the ham bands, I've been acquainted mostly of the ham bands by their meter band, because ham radio operators will refer to the bands in the meter band usually. So you don't hear a ham say, "Oh, I was on 10 megahertz last night." No, I was on the 30 meter band, or I was on 28 megahertz last night. No, they will say I was on the 10 meter band. Even the international broadcast bands have been referred to at meter bands. And one of the main reasons why all of this is still in effect and still very important is because in the past, in the old days, in the 50s, a lot of radios were actually measuring their scale in meter bands. And an example, I have QSL cards from European stations from the 80s that don't list the frequency I was listening to as, 11 dot whatever. It's actually, the QSL card says, "Oh, you were listening to us on 25.38 meters." And you're like, okay, so that was a frequency. They refer to it as the meter bands. And of course, it has to do with the fact that radio waves have a certain length. And so the wave itself is measured with the length that it has in, depending on where, we're in shortwave. Here we're dealing shortwave, so the wavelengths are very big. It's meters. And if you go down to the medium wave band, it's even bigger. It's hundreds of meters. And in the long wave band, it could be thousands of meters. But as you go up, you will have smaller and smaller. It's a reverse scale. So the higher the frequency, the smaller the wavelength. So in the VHF range, you'll have 2 meters. 2 meters is 145 megahertz. You'll have 70 centimeters. That's less than a meter. That's 440 megahertz. And so on. So you got the meter lengths and you got the centimeter lengths and so on. And you'll have the millimeter lengths and the very high gigahertz frequencies. So you V3KRP was using a 5-element Yagi. Yeah. Jeff Barrett, nice to have you on board. And I want to say hello to Hayden, that is watching. Cool. Nice to have you on board, Hayden. Hope that you become a fan of radio or amateur radio. Tony Turtle, frequency is just how frequent the cycles are. Yep. absolutely. Hunter Carver, Beijing Hour on 6180. Let's just check it out. You know, we still have no news. And actually, there was a... yeah, I'm hearing Chinese Studio 6180. It's a pretty good signal, though, coming from Cuba. I mean, this is the only frequency from China Radio that is actually only one of the few frequencies we're hearing right now. There was Glenn Hauser's World Radio. He was talking about how the Albania transmitter site, they haven't come back online since the earthquake. And we're kind of wondering, are they going to come back online or not? We're really wondering about that. I mean, Albania transmitter site had an amazing signal in North America. All of the Albania transmitters are off the air right now. So, Icadarius says that to purchase a universal adapter for his Sony ICF Shortwave 55. Keegan has 9690 Radio Exterior de España in Spanish on 9690. Artist Ali Crafter's Kitchen. Your Grundig used all the best components, including tight tolerance resistors and capacitors designed to last a lifetime. It's just amazing. That Grundig is this model is the Grundig Satellite Transistor 6001. But it's the exact same model as the Grundig Satellite 210. And it was made in 1969. It's as old as me. I guess I'll have to take it to the grave when I die. So, Mark Stevens, that's why all of us, most of us, are here to learn DX techniques. Yep, absolutely. Icadarius is thinking of getting a Texan PL660 World Band radio. It's got decent reviews. It's a good one. You'll have a good radio in the Texan PL660. That's for sure. Ivan, so how is that there's a difference between AM and shortwave? If you mean in propagation and the way that things work, it's mostly because the frequency that you are transmitting on is also has different characteristics. It doesn't behave the same way with its environment. So shortwave, which is technically 3 to 30 megahertz. And by the way, AM, when we talk about AM radio, we technically should not call that AM. We should call that medium wave. AM, that band that we listen to the radio from 500 kilohertz all the way to 1700 kilohertz, is in reality the medium wave band. It's below shortwave. That band has different characteristics. So in the daytime, it's ground wave only. So you can listen to a station up to maybe 100, 200 kilometers away, max, depending on the terrain and on how low the noise you've got and power used by the station. At the nighttime, AM behaves a little bit like shortwave. It actually starts doing skip on the ionosphere also. That's why when the sun sets, you start hearing stations from far away on AM band. But because it bounces off lower in the ionosphere, the skip isn't as big. So most of the time, the distance of listening to stations is shorter. Also, most AM stations are omnidirectional, so it's not like shortwave. And because the bounces but mostly because the bounces are shorter, it fades out, faster than a shortwave signal that at 15 megahertz that has a much bigger jump on the same skip, because it bounces off higher in the ionosphere. The lower the frequency, the lower where it will bounce off. And shortwave is above medium wave, and of course has its own characteristics because of its own frequencies that are being used. Rufus Newt, most interesting, and I do understand wavelength. Cool. Yvonne says, even though I can listen to my AM radios on the end of my spectrum on shortwave. Yeah, because it reaches, a general, and actually it's one of the questions we'll answer right now. One of the questions of Brandon is, what is general coverage? I've seen this on radios, and I was wondering, what does it mean? A general coverage receiver is a receiver that has no gaps and that will hear the full shortwave spectrum. And usually, most general coverage receiver will go from the long wave band, 100, 150 kilohertz, all the way up to 30 megahertz with absolutely no holes in the receive frequencies. And that's what we call a general coverage. General coverage is it just flat out receives all the shortwave frequencies without any gaps, all the way up to 30 megahertz. So as you're saying here, a general coverage radio might actually go and tune down to the upper range of the AM band. Oh yeah, Matt, the wavelength at long wave range is very, very big. Just look at one of the amateur bands, experimental amateur bands on what is it, 2,200 meters? That's 2.2 kilometers. That's really, and they sound different also because Yvonne, the AM stations are usually local stations to you, where shortwave comes from far away most of the time. Nick says, it's the Collins Collectors Association net on 3880 AM. This is good to listen to, and they talk about vintage Collins radio gear. Cool. Yeah, I'm hearing a station right now, 3880. About S7. There's a station talking right now, 3880. Mike Stevens, 6180, signal coming in and out. Jane Dagger says, totally up to your antenna and electronic noise. It was killing me in Tennessee with the radio's antenna. But now in the Mojave Desert, using a wire out the window clip to the radio's antenna, much better. Cool. Well, it's mostly, like I said, AM is medium wave, and it's most of the time it's local stations you'll often have. Yep, the official technical, like Matt says, 300 kilohertz to 3 megahertz is medium wave. Below 300 kilohertz is long wave. But a lot of radios will actually tag 400, 500 kilohertz long wave, but it actually starts at 300 kilohertz and down. Clark Gilson, nice to have you on board from Southwest Wisconsin. Getting the MLA 30 next week. Cool. Ghost in the Machine. That is an amazing album. It was one of my first. It was my first The Police album. Ghost in the Machine, actually. Jeff Barrett says, thanks you for saying hi to my grandson. He was so excited that he had to call his mom at work. Well, it's nice to have Hayden around. It's cool. I'm in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, Hayden. So it gives you an idea that I'm in the northeast part of North America, in the east part of Canada. It's nice to have you here, Hayden. Matt says, this is a music show on WRMI 5850. Well, it's fun to kind of understand a little more about, and And especially because one of the biggest problems that I've seen, and a lot of people have a hard time coping with this, is understanding AM. Because when they are in shortwave and you tell them, well, use AM mode, they get confused because they are in the impression of, well, isn't AM mode a mode for listening to AM radio? Isn't that AM radio, you mean? And it's no. AM is a mode of transmission, amplitude modulation. It's not the same thing. And we erroneously use that. So in North America, we'll call our radios are AM, FM. But AM and FM are transmission modes. In reality, we should actually call that medium wave and VHF, where that actually reflects more the reality of what it is. Ivan, I recently bought a multimeter. How much resistance should the coax have? Well, it depends on the frequencies and the devices and the things you use. But in general, and like Matt says, in general, most transceivers for HF and most shortwave radios, tabletops, for example, will be rated at 50 ohms. And that is the general idea, is that the coax and everything is 50 ohms. That's the perfect match. Now, if it mismatches on reception, a mismatch, like say you're 75 and 50, on reception, a mismatch is not that big of a deal. On shortwave, and that's very important because the higher the frequency you're listening to, the more a mismatch is important. But in shortwave, in general, even if you mismatch, it doesn't do much. You'll lose a little bit of signal, but not that much. In transmissions, it's a different idea because in transmission, you will actually have problems. That mismatch will take away a lot of that power off and actually can even damage a radio, for example. Trucker Daddy, aka John in Quebec, where can I get a ham course in English in the Estrie region? Damn compliqué leur affaire. That's the biggest problem with ham radio courses is the fact that it's darn complicated. More complicated than it should be, honestly. More complicated than it should be. But in the Estrie area, in Sherbrooke, there's a lot of English-speaking people. So there must be, I would have to look at this, but there must be, I'm pretty sure there must be an English club or something in that area that has a repeater or something. I'm pretty sure. So you're looking to actually have the course in English, Trucker Daddy? Yarabamba. Seen the Grundig 6001 for $325 on eBay. Keegan has 5085 WTWW S9 static crashes. Nick says, I love the chat here as there's a lot of people monitoring the spectrum and finding interesting things to listen to. Yeah, that's the fun part. And that's why also you guys need to be in the Facebook group. Because the Facebook group, there's constantly people posting things that they're listening to and mentioning frequencies. And everybody's sharing the different things they're listening to. It's a really cool place to be. Official SWL channel on Facebook. I'll post the link to the Facebook group here because I think it's really, really a great place to be. And when the show's over, well, people head on there to actually share pictures, videos, what they're listening to. It's really a lot of fun. And I'll just do this here. I'll have a little 2-second rant here, and I want to share it because it's come to my attention of a few things, and I want to talk about it. You guys have seen that I posted a video about Two Hands in the Radio, and is the fact that he's removed his videos and everything. And of course, we had a live show on that week where we talked about Two Hands in the Radio. And apparently Two Hands in the Radio didn't really like much of the way that we handled that. So he's been actually actively sending a lot of people private messages and comments about how, you shouldn't watch my shows or listen to me anymore. I just want to say that is the most immature thing I've ever seen by someone. And, honestly, if that's the kind of person that Two Hands in the Radio is, well, the hell with it. Maybe you shouldn't have, from the start, a YouTube channel. And that's all I'm going to say here. But don't think that I don't know what's happening behind my back with people. Because I have a lot of people standing behind my back. And I always know what's happening with everybody when things happen. And I will just end. I do wish you the best of luck. But how immature it could be to be so idiot to do that. I'm sorry. Okay. That was my 2-minute rant. Totally worth it. What else do we have? Jane Dagger. Take care. And thank you very much. Nice to always be here and help. Ikadarius. Last Saturday I purchased a Bell & Howell World Band radio that was medium wave FM shortwave. Paid $215. Works and received very well. Cool. William Helms says, I'd love to have either a Collins or Alec Crafter's rig. Yeah, these are amazing. These are amazing. Keegan has 650 WSM. Cool. Max Headstrong, nice to have you on board from Michigan, USA. Always nice to have everybody here. What else do we have? Ivan Tsiga, and the antenna itself, should it have limited ohms? I mean, less resistance. It may get more noise, I reckon. Well, technically, all of the system, all of the antenna system is something that is balanced. So normally it should be balanced everywhere. Because if you have a mismatch anywhere in there, you have loss that happens automatically. And the receiving side, it might not matter that much, but on the transmitting side, you'll generate more heat. And like I said, it could actually, in a transceiver particularly, when you transmit, it could cause a problem. Trigger Daddy, there's a club and repeaters, but not English. I speak French well enough, but I need to study that in English. Okay. You know what? Send me an email to official Shortwave Radio at gmail.com. Send me a message there. Official Shortwave Radio at gmail.com. And I'll look at what is available for English courses in your area. Rufus says Facebook page is great. What else do we have? Joseph, what was Two Hands in Radio problem? We were very supportive of him and just bummed out. Like now we were supposed to handle it. That's the thing. And honestly, it's sad because he is actually contacting the most people possible that he can to let them know that, apparently I'm a bad guy now, which I'm not. And we kind of always wanted, I'm the first to say that you should never have removed this video. Nick has EAM messages from the HF Global Command 4724. Cool. Bro Weaver, is there too many preachers on shortwave? Probably, but that's life, and there's other stations to listen to. You just tune around. There's other things you can listen to. What else do we have? Yeah, Archer's Alley Crafter's Kitchen has the most desirable Alley Crafter's radio, the SX42. It is a very, very sexy radio. Take care, Keegan. Have a good chilly night. Have a good chilly night. Rebel Foxy, nice to have you here. Simon Steck, where are you guys? Let us know. Always nice to know where everybody is. For sure. Ikadaria says the 2009 edition of the Passport to World Band Radio. I miss that publication. Man, I miss that publication so much. It was one of the must-have every year. Back in the days. I'll have a little 2 seconds here to share. If you like what I do and enjoy what I do, paypal.me/shortwave, or just send your donations to the email address that I post here, which is the Yahoo email address. And hope that you like our shows. It, of course, costs money to run this, even though I do get YouTube monetization. There's lighting systems, and I need a better internet connection to do live shows. And bought a new laptop because I have to, because I do live shows. And so, there's radios, there's all sorts of things that I test that you guys love to see me test. And that is possible thanks to your donations. So if you enjoy what I do, why not spare a couple of dollars, and even $1, if that's all you can spare. It's perfect. And it really helps out. And I want to thank everybody that has donated. And think about it if you never donated before. Bro Weaver, why would people talk about, there's always that. Bro Weaver, I got tons of people talking trash about me. I can tell you, that's, there's, when you get somewhat popular at doing something and it works right, there's always people in there that are not happy about it. And sometimes there are people that were nice people that for some reason or for a comment, they just take it in the wrong way. And decide that, I'm the kind of guy that if you talk trash to me, I might be mad a little bit, but I'll just ignore, and that's it. I'm not going to start, harassing you or going around to your fans and saying, hey, you shouldn't listen to that guy or whatever, It's life as we know it. Simon Steck is in New Jersey. Nice to have you here. RJDA Dakota. Nice to have you on board. Rebel Foxy. Our video of what? The only videos accepted are of radio. So that's the only thing. What else do we have? Marcos Diniz. Nice to have you on board. From Brazil. Marcos. Pretty cool. Started DXing when you were 7, Rebel. Cool. Cool. You guys remember how it was so amazing when we, I think one of the, because the hobby's amazing, and I think whatever age you start listening to it is probably super cool. But I don't know. I have the impression that as when I was a young teenage guy or even a kid, for some reason the amazement was amplified. I don't know if I'm wrong, but I have the impression that the the pleasure of learning something new was even more interesting. By the way, guys, I wanted to share that with you. I have the weather station. You guys have seen the weather station that I use and that I have now from um, that I got for Christmas, and it has the from Lacrosse Technologies, and of course it has a 60 kilohertz reception for the atomic clock, for the clock of WWVH, yeah, WWVL in Colorado, and VB. Why VL? What the hell? WWVB in Colorado. And here in Montreal, we're a far, far distance from Boulder, Colorado. And so that 60 kilohertz, I had another atomic clock and it would almost never synchronize. Well, I am surprised to see that where I position my weather station, it actually receives it quite often. Like right now, it's not synchronized, but I would say at least 2 to 3 times a week, I see the little antenna icon that says, yeah, I synchronized last night. So kind of cool to see that my weather station actually has synchronized with 60 kilohertz. RJDA Dakota's listening to hams on 80 meters, 3972. I'm still on the 3880 AMers here. Kimberly, sometimes people take things completely wrong. I don't know how, but you do. Yeah, sometimes they're just I don't know. When you're frustrated with something, sometimes you see a comment and you take it in the wrong way, when in reality, you shouldn't. So, Trucker Daddy says, email sent talking about coax. I used to ground the center wire of my coax. attached to a screw of a light switch and let 6 inches of braid dongle. I got a low shortwave standing wave using an old CB radio. Cool, Yvonne. Thanks for the request of but don't earth ground coax on dipole antenna, says Mark Elford. Yvonne says you should transmit this program on shortwave, would be amazing. Well, I was on shortwave a few times. There were a few pirate broadcasters that did the live stream of the show. Absolutely. So, Well, like I said, Yvonne, for reception, even if they mismatch a little bit, it doesn't matter much. But keep us updated. And, it's always fun. It's always fun to check it out. Can we see the weather station? 1 second here. You're making me work hard now, Kimberly. So here's the weather station. I'm going to go and fetch it. 2 seconds, guys. Whoops. I just kicked the camera. So here's the weather station, what it looks like. And you'll see at the same time the temperature outside. So this is the Lacrosse Technology new weather station with the wind speed. It's very, very nice. So you got a wind speed. You see here it's minus 7.5 Celsius. Have an indoor temperature on the other side here. So here's the clock, and at that clock, next to the date, there's a little antenna that shows up. So when it does show up, it means it's synchronized. What the hell happened here? Everything froze for some reason. So I'm just gonna. Is everything okay? Yeah, okay. So I know it's so Oh, this is interesting. Is it possible that... What's happening here? Yeah, I'm at like 2 frames per second. Let me just unplug and replug. Of course, I'm not talking in the microphone. Sorry, guys. Let's see here. We should be back to normal. Yeah, we are. So here's the weather station. It's -7 degrees. And of course, here there's the, on that side, there's the little, there's a little icon that shows up that says that it's synchronized with WWV. And of course, here you have the wind speed and you have all of that information here. So it's really cool for that. And I think somebody wants to say hi to everybody. Come on, man. Okay, let's go. Come on, here we go. So here, I'm just going to put the weather station down here. And we're going to say hi to Mr. Paul. So Mr. Paul saying hello to everybody. And of course, this is Mr. Paul the cat. And he's a big cat. And he says hello to everyone. He was sleeping on the other end of the room for most of the show today. So here, show your face. Everybody wants to see your cute little face. That was like saying, no, I'm not going there. So, Mr. Paul, of course. Say hello. Look at this. Look at here. Here we go. Everybody wants to see you. So, that was the weather station. So it's really, really cool. And what else do we have? Rebel says he's heard some strange things. There's a lot of strange things on shortwave. RJDA Dakota says AMers are a lot of fun on 80, but sometimes it's a quiz show, or sometimes like on 3916. Yeah, 3916, I know there's the quiz thing. Paul L. McCord Jr., nice to have you on board from Oklahoma City. Dan V., nice to have you here. Dan from Northeast Ohio and 8WJZ. Pretty cool. How many shortwave stations still remain? There's quite a few stations still on shortwave. But of course, if you've not listened for a long time, it's very, very different today. William Moser, nice to have you here. Matt says, very nice, Jill. I want to get a weather station at some point, but I'm probably going to keep spending on station improvements for a while. That weather station was, it was always at like $170. And I thought it was too expensive. And I was looking at Canadian Tires here, and it came to 60. What was it? 60. I think it was 69. So when I saw it at 69, I thought, oh, okay, it's time to purchase the weather station. So doesn't have the barometer, but it has wind speed, wind chill factor, humidity, temperature, indoor-outdoor temperatures, and all sorts of things, including the weather alerts if weather goes bad. So all sorts of things like that. Yes, Kimberly, you make me work hard, but what I'll do for a California woman. So, Potisha, what are you doing, man? He wants to find a way to kind of sleep on me. He just can't find it. Let me just like this. I can't take you really, man. I know that you want to. Here we go. Let me just. Sometimes he finds a way to actually get on me really, really well, but it's not always easy. Look at that kitty. Look at how beautiful that cat is. Huh? Alamino? Look at the camera. Everybody wants to see your face. You're a really cute little cat. So, Paul the cat, he's going to be 5 years in June since he adopted me. Because it's not the other way around. I didn't adopt the cat. The cat adopted me. And for those that don't know the story, this was my old neighbor's cat. So 5 years ago, this little cat showed up on the balcony, and came in my home. I was wondering, okay, why? What the hell? And he didn't seem so. He spent a couple of days outside, and I would see him all the time outside, and he didn't go anywhere. And I thought, okay, and it was hanging pretty much close to the house here because he had come in my house. So after a day or two, I thought, well, okay, I'm gonna buy some cat food. I'm gonna buy a litter box and let him in. And he spent almost a week every time, all week here, pretty much. Then he disappears, and I'm wondering where he is. And then he comes back after a few days, and I'm like, okay, do you have a house? What's happening? That's when I learned that he was my next door neighbor's cat. So one day she comes up to me and she says, "Does my cat go to your home?" And I'm like, "Your cat is he an orange colored cat?" He says, "Yeah, sometimes." And so we started talking, and he would actually spend a few days there, a few days here. We actually gave our phone numbers so we can text message each other when the cat was at, so I wouldn't worry. She would say, okay, Paul is at my place tonight. So I wouldn't worry. I knew that he was at her place. And if you would sleep at my place, I would text her and say, hey, Paul is sleeping here tonight. It was just kind of a very funny experience. But at some point, about a year after she was moving, and one day when he was outside, we both arrived, me and her, at the same time. And so the cat started running towards us, and she thought the cat would go to her, when the cat actually came to me, meowing, and ignored her totally. So, let me just, here we go. So I'm just going to close the door, guys. So I was a little, I didn't feel comfortable because it's like the cat had decided that I was the master. And so she said, okay, seems that my cat loves you more than likes me. And I'm like, yeah, okay. And when she, about a month and a half, 2 months before she moved, she came up to me and she said, I want this cat to be happy. And obviously, he's happy with you. And actually, every time he wanted to go out from her place, it was to come to my place. So she said, obviously, he's happy with you. And I want my cat to be happy. Do you want the cat? And she gave me the cat. So it'll be 5 years in June. Hikadarius says, I got a 1-year-old Plenko named Whiskers. And, and a bunch of guppies and 2 aquarium snails. I like aquariums. I when I was young, we had one at home, but I never had one after. RJDA Dakota, very cool cat. Then, Mr. Paulie's getting larger. He's 20 pounds. Rufus Newt has a wildlife refuge here. William Moser, been doing a lot of non-directional beacon hunting lately. Been fun. That's for the website you did on YouTube. Helps a lot. Oh, cool. Yes, Paul is very happy cat. I can tell you that. Take care, V3KRP. It's nice to have you on board. Jerry, nice weather station. Need one for the shack. Yeah, I love it. It's very, very nice. And when you plug it in with the power adapter, it stays on all the time for the power, for the lighting. And I actually really, really love and works well. Rebel says I have a Motorola HT1250 and it's giving me issues. I can reset it so I can reprogram it. Mike Hanna, what brand is your weather station? I'm interested in getting one. It's so the exact brand is, so this is a Lacrosse Technology wind speed weather station, and the model number of this one is the Charlie Alpha, so CA 87092. It's a 433 megahertz 433 megahertz sensor. So outside you put the wind and temperature sensor to have all of the stuff displayed like this. So it's really really nice. Honestly, it's a cool weather station. Really love it. It's very nice, and it's kind of my Christmas gift to myself this year. Rufus News says, Paul is large and in charge. Tony Turley could make a kitty cam. Yeah, a lot of people would like to see Paul all the time. Oh yeah, definitely. The cat is actually bigger than some dogs, for sure. Tony Turtle said, check the cat when it comes home. It may just have a microphone. Oh, man. Artist Ali Crafter says, I'm old enough to remember when Paul the cat was DX the cat. Yeah, because we had named him DX. That day I was in the chat room, and we were talking radio, and I had mentioned to everybody, hey, look at that. The cat just appeared on the balcony. And everybody says, call him DX. So, Paul the cat, a.k.a. DX the cat. Prasad, you got 8 cats. Oh my God. Yeah, I'd like to see that. See the cats, Prasad. Cool. Darius says, my dad has a black and white female cat named Fido. I like that. Fido. Yep, DX is happy. Take care, Brent. It was nice to have you on board. Kimberly says, we love Paul. His California girlfriends love him. Isis, Snowpaws, and Peachy. Like that. Oh, okay, a Pleco. Okay, Icdarius. Radio Japan from France. Transmitter, 7 out of 10, says Tad enough. Cool. Cool. JDX, you should put a GoPro on DX and see where he goes. Yeah, I'd like actually to know where he goes in the summertime when he goes everywhere. I would really like to know. And it's funny because many neighbors have actually given different names. The third or fourth house from on that side, on the north side, they were one day they were talking, and one of the guys says, "That's your cat?" And I said, "Yeah." He's here all the time. I said, yeah, he's a friendly cat. He goes to see everybody. And we were talking. And like, I think every neighbor gave Paul a different name. And it's just so funny. But he's just so, my next door neighbor right now is she's a 90-year-old woman. And she lives with her daughter that takes care of her. And, Paul the cat goes on that yard a lot. And here we have a law in Montreal. If a neighbor complains that your cat is on their yard, you can have a $600 ticket. Your cat should not be in the neighbor's yard. And it cannot be on public property. It's stupid because have you ever tried to control where a cat goes? A cat is not a dog. It's a cat. But anyways, I got some really nice neighbors here. And one day, her daughter talks to me and says, "Oh, are you the guy that has the that nice orange cat?" And I said, "Oh yeah, my cat is the cat a problem?" And she says, "Oh no, absolutely not. On the contrary, my 90-year-old mom goes outside to see if Paul is there to pet him." And Paul actually stays there. and lets her pet him for like 5-10 minutes. And so she says the cat is so adorable, and my mom loves him. I was like, wow, well, I'm happy. It's cool, you know? It's just crazy. Mike Hanna, Tengel, going to find it. Darius listen to Radio Japan, especially Hello from Tokyo. One time to listen to Radio Japan that makes it somewhat to North America is 6155. It's broadcast from Austria at 0500 UT. And it actually makes a decent signal here in Montreal. So it might be a good one to try. 0500 6155 from Austria. But the best one for me, and I'm happy to speak French, is the French language program from Radio Japan on 9855 from Madagascar at 2030 UT. That one comes in really, really well. And so, yeah, everybody thought Paul was a female at some point. No, he's a cat. He's a male cat. Okay, let's just check it out here. I'm just going to check the email for a second. Anybody checked in or something? Just out of curiosity. And Kevin has a fixed radio that he's happy to have. The C Crane radio shortwave. Very nice radio, of course, indeed. So he sent a picture. Says it's very nice on shortwave and medium wave. So it's really nice to see his C Crane receiver back in order. Really nice. Really nice. So this is great. And really, really cool. So nobody else here. What else do we have? Mike Hill, watching from Northwest Arkansas, being nostalgic for my shortwave listening days in the late 70s onward. Well, it's nice to have you here. And, you know, when I started looking at my QSL collection from the past, oh, man, I can tell you. Keegan says, a friend of my dad, W9JEF, and I, Gene, K9RSV, has 2 cats, an orange male and a black and white female. Matt says, that's hilarious. I ended up getting a stray cat, a neutered male. You could tell just by looking, but others in the neighborhood gave him female names. Donna was one of them. Oh, man. Keegan says the orange cat is named Tom Tom, the black and white cat named Mitzi. Cool. Cats are fun. Rebel, is it possible to use an old analog TV for DXing on VHF? The problem, Rebel, with an analog TV is that it's made to receive wide band FM and not narrow band FM. So it's not made to receive the narrow band FM signals very well. Unfortunately, I still remember when I had an old TV that went to channel 83 on UHF, and I could actually kind of tune analog cell phone calls and up channels like, you know, in 75 and 80 and so on. Crazy. Mike Hill, Radio Luxembourg, Swiss Radio International, so many great stations from back in the day. You want to get nostalgic, Mike? Here, we're going to do a little nostalgia time. And that's going to be, I'm sure some of you are going to instantly. Let me just find the app. For this, and you guys will get back and nostalgia time. Where the hell's the, you know, when you're searching for an app you never find it, eh? Where Where the hell is that app? Okay. I should find it somehow. I should find my app. Come on, Shortwave, where is it? I'm going too fast, so of course I'm probably going over it like 20 times before I see it. And Shortwave. Is it ringtones? What the hell is that app? I can't find the darn app, of course, as I want to use it. So I'm going to do another thing here, and that's going to be better. So here, guys, let's listen to an old friend. That's obviously really taken from Shortwave just by the way it is. Swiss Radio International interval signal, guys. Yeah, that brings back that will bring back a lot of nostalgia to people that have listened to Shortwave for a long time. Ecadarius says, I used to have a male black and white cat named Nermal, but I called him Nermy. Michael, I'm all about this nostalgia. Oh, man. Wasn't the kitten's name in Garfield Normal? Oh, I don't know. Yarabamba has 5855. 5855. Anything here? I got 5850. But I don't have 5855. Got nothing on 5855. Well, I got 5850. Tom, I used to have an orange and white cat. He passed away a couple of years ago. And we got two new cats, a black and white female and a smoky gray and white male. Cool. Where are you from, Tom? Let us know. RJDA Dakota used to pick up cordless phones on about 16,000 kilohertz. There was a, you mean 1600 maybe? The first cordless phones, by the way, were in the bottom part of the, the upper range of the AM band. It was, the first cordless phones were AM mode, and they were around 1700 kilohertz. Rebel says, I heard a pirate playing a Full Doors album on 7455 last night. Oh, really? Wow. What else do we have? Artist Ali Crafter, so that's Swiss Radio. My memory is fading. Mank Hill, one of my favorite interval signals. Yeah, there's a lot of nice interval signals and a lot of stations that I really, really like. Hey, Tom, you're in Australia? Cool. VK5FAAH. Nice to have you here. Tom from Australia. I'm located in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. Ali Crafter says, favorite interval signal was Voice of America's Yankee Doodle, mainly because I'm American. And when I was first getting into shortwave, they were all over the bands. Yep. Cordless phones were never in 16 megahertz, RGDA Dakota. They were really, maybe had images or something, because I don't recall any cordless phones in the 16 megahertz band. Are you sure you're not mistaking this from, because 16 megahertz is a big chunk of marine bands, maritime bands, and there were maritime, like ship-to-shore telephone calls that could be heard on a frequency range. Maybe you're mixing that up. because the cordless phone frequencies were around 1.7 megahertz at first. Then they moved up to the 49 megahertz area. 46 megahertz area, sorry. 46 megahertz. Then they moved up to somewhere at 900 megahertz. And somewhere at 2.4 gigahertz and 5.8 gigahertz. That's pretty much the frequencies that were for cordless phones. By the way, if you like cats, Simon's cat on YouTube is really a lot of fun to look at, for sure. Jim, how about the space station? Space station has an amateur station on 145.800 slow scan TV. 145.825. There's a packet bulletin board system. And you can hear the space station, and there's different frequencies starting at like 143 megahertz and up. They have multiple frequencies they actually use, for sure. My favorite radio interval signal was Radio RSA, says RJ Dakota. Radio RSA. So this is... So here it is. Here it is, guys. It's not very strong, though. Oops. This would be better from here. I remember listening to that when I was young, on the DX100 right here in my back. That was amazing. Good old times. William Moser, why does the non-directional beacon come in better on upper sideband? I thought they were all CW. Actually, they are AM mode with CW code in the AM signal. But they, the reason why using sideband to listen to them is better is because often in sideband receivers have a better signal to noise ratio. So in noise, you might be able to discern better the Morse code in upper sideband. It's simply because of the signal to noise ratio and single sideband of most radios. Icadarius says, what was the furthest AM shortwave station you ever heard? Well, shortwave, of course, Australia is pretty much as far as you can get from Montreal. So if you put it in perspective, of course, Radio Australia was an easy catch, but I did get a couple of VK amateur stations on my shortwave radios over time. So that would be the DX because ham radio operators have much less power than a shortwave broadcaster. But I've been pretty much all over the place in reception. So as for AM, the medium wave band, I've heard a few stations from Europe. I've heard Norway, I think it was 13, 14, something like that. Just the other time, a couple of months back, there was WCBS having, they were off for the night and we were DXing 880 kilohertz. And I could hear the BBC 882 kilohertz actually. Couldn't really make out the voice, but it was definitely the carrier of the BBC on 882. So, you know. Far too many gadgets. Nice to have you here. MT Silver Star 1700 kilohertz base and to handset, 49 megahertz handset to base cordless phones. Yep. Mike Hill had the DX160. Darius, I like the Voice of America station sign on and sign off music. Yankee Doodle Danny, yep. Mike Hill, I think the Solomon Islands was probably the furthest station I've picked up. Rebel, I have videos of me listening to different things on my grinding. You know what, Rebel? You want to send your channel? Is your channel mainly radio stuff? Send your channel to my email, and I'll actually make a video and share it on the you know, as long as you have the majority of videos and have no content that is controversial, I'll share it. I'll be happy to share it. Official shortwaveradio@gmail.com, and send me the link to your channel, Rebel, and I'll be happy to share it with everybody. William Helms used to hear 49 megahertz phones on my scanner when I had a lot of Asian neighbors in my complex. RJ88 Dakota. Yeah, VNG time signal on 12 megahertz. That's true. One of the questions also to answer today. How do I know if a station in a frequency list can be received at my location? I have a hard time knowing which ones I can listen to or not. That's a question of experience, because there's a lot of different factors that actually will have you, make possible the reception of a station to your area. So the biggest thing, probably the number one thing to look at for any stations to know if it can be heard, is to look at the frequency they're using and what is it between you and that station. Daytime, nighttime, half and half. Why? Say that you're listening to a station on 6 megahertz. If it's daytime through an area up to you, that 6 megahertz frequency probably doesn't come from that area. It comes from where it's dark, because it's a low frequency. Same thing, you're listening to a station on 17 megahertz. It's a high frequency. It's mostly a daytime frequency. So you'll have, generally, the station will come in from the side of the earth that is in sunlight. So you have a general idea where that comes from because of this. There's a middle frequency, like 25 meter band, or even the 13 meter band, 11 megahertz, 13 megahertz. Yeah, sometimes, not 13, sorry, 22 meter band, 25, 22 meter band, 11 and 13 megahertz. Those are a little more in a mix, so it might be at many times during the day. So there's that. There's the what's the target area? If they're sending the signal away from you, there's less chances that you'll hear them than if it's sent towards your area. All sorts of little things like that. And one of the questions you have is, how can I ID a station? You seem to have an easy way to ID stations when you're using your EIBI space.de list. That comes from, there's a few things you got to look. So when you go to a website to look for what stations could be on the air, I like lists. Everybody knows that. So I use EIBI space, and I use the search, the find capability of my browser to search for frequency. So I'll look at, first of all, what is broadcasting at the time I'm listening to. Right now, for example, we're reaching 0300 UT. So if I'm listening to a station on a frequency, I'm going to check out what are the stations listed that are at 0300 UTC. That's the first thing I'll look at. Now, once that is chosen, if there were 25 stations on that frequency, now you probably have a list of only 3 or 4 different stations. So it's already narrowed down to 3 or 4 stations. The other thing that you'll need to check out is, what language are you listening to? The knowledge of understanding, you don't have to understand Portuguese to know what Portuguese sounds like. You don't need to understand Italian to know what Italian sounds like. It's actually easy to differentiate Japanese from Chinese. Once you get the hang of the languages, what they sound like, you often can easily make out what language it is. Now, there's a lot of African and exotic languages that are kind of difficult to make out, but that said, if you're hearing Spanish, well, out of these stations, what's in Spanish? Chances are there's only one in Spanish. So you already locked down whatever you're listening to. So, okay, I'm on that frequency at 03 UTC, and in Spanish, okay, it's radio whatever. If it's in, Chinese, well, what's in Chinese at this time? These two often will pin down easily what you're listening to. In the cases where there's more than one station with the same language, then you'll start looking at the frequency and where's the target area. If I hear something on 6 megahertz in Chinese at 6 in the morning, let's say at 11 UTC, which is early morning here, well, if it says one is in Europe and one is in China, well, Europe to North America at 11 UTC is in total, it's total daylight. 6 megahertz will not propagate. So the other chance is, there's another one, but it's in China. Well, everything from the west coast of North America to the Pacific area is all in darkness at that time. Chances are, okay, probably it's China. So there are indications like that I use. But I can tell you that 95% of everything you listen to, you can easily make out by just two things. The frequency, well, three things. Frequency, time, and language. 95% of the time, you already know what you're listening to. These three things will dish out any other broadcast. One of the other questions that Brendan has is, you're talking a lot about relays from WRMI today. And you were mentioning one day that there weren't really a lot of relays in the past. Why is that a new phenomena? Relays in the past were not very popular. There were big gun stations like the BBC were using. They had their own relays, like they still have, like Ascension Islands. But BBC also had Antigua relay in the Caribbean. That one was used for North American broadcasts, for example. Radio Netherlands had their Bonaire Netherlands Antilles in the Caribbean transmitter for North America. There were a few stations like that, but the majority of stations didn't have that back then. They were all broadcasting direct. So imagine, we heard China Radio International quite a lot. We heard it tonight from Cuba. Well, back in the 80s when I started, China Radio was called Radio Beijing, and they didn't have relays. So when you were getting Radio Beijing, you were really getting DX, because it was a difficult task to get Radio Beijing. Like it was a difficult task to get Radio Japan. One of the first stations that actually did relay from North America was Radio Taiwan, back then was called Voice of Free China, would actually use the Okeechobee transmitter from WRFI on their transmissions to North America. The reason why relays are used more today is very simple. Most of the transmissions relayed today, most of them, and I'm talking here in North America, are transmissions that were removed from shortwave in their home country. They have no more transmitters, but they use relays because it's cheap and it's still a way to stay on shortwave. And there are quite a few stations that have understood that using relays is a good way to have a transmission more efficient. So lots of relays. I look at Madagascar relay. I mean, that Madagascar relay is jam-packed with stations all around the clock. They are like the number one relay station in that area. It's crazy. And there's BBC with Ascension Islands and so on. And also a lot of stations I've noticed that, there's a way to maybe monetize their own transmitter sites by renting time to other broadcasters. So that's kind of a way to make money. Yeah, Jerry DX, absolutely. We are getting more than a foot of snow in the next 2 weeks. 2 weeks, 2 days. In the next 2 days. Starts tomorrow morning. They're announcing more than a foot of snow, plus more than 30 centimeters. Mike Hill, enjoyed monitoring times. Well, you have Spectrum Monitor today, that is an equivalent, but it's an electronic publication. Deutsche Welle, yeah. Deutsche Welle, Joe Brown, absolutely. Matt, I hope to hear Solomon Islands sometime, even though it's not as far from me as Madagascar. I'm amazed at how well I can copy those stations. The thing is, Madagascar relay stations are very powerful. They're 100, 200 kilowatts. Where Solomon Islands, because it's a local broadcast, it's much weaker and it's more like omnidirectional. Rebel, what's being done with the old UHF band? Well, it's being rebranded for other uses, including cell phone and 5G stuff, and a lot of different things are being moved there. So, Icadarius, yes, Spectrum Monitor is a magazine dedicated. It has the feel and the look of monitoring times, but it's an electronics publication. Okay? And so it's the Spectrum. Let me just share the website. The Spectrum Monitor here. So I'm going to share the link. The Spectrum Monitor. And it's a very nice publication. But it's an electronic publication you get in your that you'll get on your tablet or computer every month. Low band VHF is still used by a lot of law enforcement, and it's surprising the number of things still there in the low VHF band. RJDA Dakota. JDX says, my boy Alex Jones on 4840. Oh, yeah, before Radio Beijing, it was Radio Peking. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, Rebel. Mike Hill, it was cool listening to the low power Solomon Islands, kind of like Radio Belize back in the day. You know, it's like the tropical bands when they had so many signals from Central South America. It was so amazing to listen to. I remember Haiti. I remember listening to Venezuela, to Costa Rica. I mean, you know, today we still have Brazil there. We have Cuba, but, you know, there's not that as many stations as there used to be. Hey guys, hope you enjoyed today's show. I'm gonna actually just share one last time my PayPal. If you like what I do and want to contribute to help me out, remember you can send me a little something, donations on PayPal at the Yahoo email that you see here, or paypal.me/shortwave. And of course, you can become a patron at patreon.com/radio and computers. And this is a way to help me out. And it's really, really nice to have the contribution. Helps me pay for everything. And even get new radios and do reviews. Radio Oklahoma. What cheap starting radio would you recommend to broadcast shortwave? RadioWow R108. RadioWow. I just posted the link here. RadioWow, the name. RadioWow R108. Not very expensive, but an amazingly good little radio for shortwave broadcasts. Rebel Foxy here, a lot of stuff in Spanish on 5 megahertz. Yeah, Radio Rebelde 5025, Radio Vanacuba 5040, among them. So I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. It was nice to have you on board. We've been on for 3 hours and 10 minutes. Next show, Friday, this coming Friday, at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific, 20 hours Universal Time. So hope you enjoyed today's show. We'll be back Friday. And we're here twice a week. So stay tuned. Hope you enjoy our show. Hope you love the content. Don't forget the Facebook group. Great place to stay and have more news and more information about what people are listening to and sharing. It's really a great place to be and with great people. So take care, everybody. Stay safe. Love you all. Good night. And see you Friday. And Friday we have a special show, by the way. It's a QSL show. And you know what we're going to do? On Friday, we are actually, and I will too, I want everybody to write a reception report on Friday while we do the show. So that means on Friday, we'll be tuning at least one broadcast, if not more. And I'll actually be doing a reception report and sending it to the station live on the show. So this is going to make everybody kind of want to participate and have some QSL cards, who knows, in the mail or EQSLs. So this Friday, live QSL card or reception report time, and sending at least one email to a radio station we'll be tuning in on Friday, live on the show. Take care, everybody. Stay safe. And see you Friday, 20 hours Universal Time, right here. Bye-bye, everyone.